You're listening to the Mind Over Finger podcast, episode number 117.
Welcome to the Mind Over Finger podcast, discussions on mindful music making, efficient practice, and building a purposeful career. And now, your host, violinist, teacher, and high-performance coach for musicians, Dr. Renee Paul Gauthier.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day as you're tuning into this episode. Today, I have a really inspiring conversation with the founding members of an incredible organization, Musicians for the World, Jesus Sáenz and Kelley McGarry. Jesus and Kelley are both active performing musicians and teachers who, when the pandemic hit, noticed a great need in the musical community and decided to take action. As Kelley puts it, quality music education is very difficult to come by in many areas of the world, resulting in a lack of opportunity for all individuals living within that area. The COVID-19 pandemic showed Kelley and Jesus that the internet can be a very powerful tool for connection and learning, and that it can make a serious difference in the world of music through virtual music education. So, led by their common vision, they founded Musicians for the World, an organization dedicated to create a world where opportunity is accessible to those who dream of it, no matter their geographic location or socioeconomic standing. They've created global partnerships with schools in several countries, collaborations with festivals, universities, and competitions, and they have masterclass series with world-class artists. Musicians for the World seeks to fill the gaps necessary to embrace all those who wish to learn. Their aim is to create an inclusive environment where they can present opportunities to individuals who are eager and deserving to learn, but may otherwise not get the chance. Kelley and Jesus have already had a powerful impact in the world. In this conversation, they share with us how it unfolded, and they show us how we too can make a difference in our communities. Let's go to the show. Jesus Sáenz and Kelley McGarry, it's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm really excited to dive in your stories and hear more about Musicians for the World. But before, can we please hear about those stories? Please tell us about you, how you got started, and how your musical journeys unfolded.
Okay, that's a long story, but I will make it short. I started violin in Peru through a friend of the family. He started giving me lessons. I attended the National Conservatory of Music in Peru, and when I was about 17, I got a scholarship to go to Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas, and then I lived in Texas for a long time, and then I moved to Boston to study at the Boston Conservatory of Music, and that's where I met Kelley, and yeah, that's a very brief overview of my musical life.
And we'll have more chances to dive in deeper. How about you, Kelley?
So I grew up on Long Island in New York, and I began playing actually at my kindergarten when I was 5. I was the worst in my class. I wasn't allowed to play in the recital. It was just anything I was involved in with violin, I ruined the whole thing. So after that, though, my parents decided to get me lessons, and I started studying with a local teacher, Karen Dow, and I started getting more serious about it, and eventually I started studying with a new teacher. Her name's Ellie Kang. She was the soloist with Tim Janis. She's actually in Chicago as well. And also Anton Pelageyev, and they kind of helped me prepare, and I wound up going to Manhattan School of Music pre-college, and then I did 1 year at Manhattan School of Music for college, and then I transferred to Boston Conservatory where I met Jesus, and I completed my undergraduate there as well as my graduate degree. I got a GPD, and yeah, that's my education, but what me and Jesus did after that was we actually went on to play with Lincoln Center Stage. which is we played on cruise ships as soon as we graduated our college, and that was very exciting. We did that up until the pandemic.
Mm. And what's interesting about you is you both maintain performing careers and teaching careers, but you've also founded a really amazing organization. I was so excited when I discovered Musicians for the World, and I'd love to hear about this. How did that come about?
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were not doing anything, like many musicians, no concerts, no few lessons. And we were asked to volunteer and to teach these music programs online. Of course, that's when Zoom was, a new thing. Everyone was like, "Oh, let's do Zoom." I didn't know what is Zoom, and then I discovered Zoom, and we started giving lessons to students in Haiti and Peru. The connection with Peru is obvious. I grew up there. I know a lot of music programs. Actually, Kelley came to Peru, and she was teaching with me in these students in Peru. And then I went to Haiti a few years ago, and I also made some connections there with the music program. So we started to volunteer and teach online. And then we discovered that we really liked it. We really liked working with students abroad. And we decided to make this an official organization where this is what we do. We mentor students online from all over the world, especially those who need the most, And yeah, that's how Musicians for the World started.
I would invite all the listeners to check out your website, which is musiciansfortheworld.org. Mm-hmm. It is so incredible, this mission that you have and the impact that it seems to be having. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, the mission, and also the impact that you see the organization having?
Sure. So after we founded our organization, we decided to just keep it in areas that need it the most. So our mission wound up being to empower vulnerable communities worldwide through free virtual music education. So what we do is we offer free music education to students from various different countries. Right now, we're in 11 different countries. And what we do is we offer group lessons, weekly group lessons. And then we also have a masterclass series, which is bi-weekly, and we welcome in some world-renowned artists to work with 4 of the students from 4 different countries. And then the students that are involved in that, they get to have private lessons with us leading up to that. And then we also, for some of our most promising students, or even just the ones that ask for it, we do offer a private lesson program where they can receive private lessons. And we always keep open communication with our students. We have, in a day, I get 100 messages on WhatsApp. They're all messaging us. They're all asking questions, asking for advice, for music, for recordings. So it's not just those 3 things. It winds up being a lot more. We just kind of provide for them whatever we can. We're helping a lot of them audition for festivals, audition for schools. A lot of them are actually auditioning for college. Some of them are actually wanting to come to the U.S., so we're helping them facilitate that. Basically, we have our mission, and then we have a million things outside of that. We're just giving as much help to all of our students as we can.
I think it's also important to tell what countries we are in, because when you hear 11 countries, okay, 11 countries, but we're actually in countries where that are kind of disconnected from the music scenery that we know. We are in Suriname, Belize, Trinidad and Tobago, Peru, Mexico, Bolivia, Argentina, Uruguay, Kenya, Uganda, and
Mexico.
Yes, Haiti. Yes. I hope I'm not forgetting one.
This is truly incredible work, and I was so excited to talk with you because I feel that it's life-changing work. The impact that you're having on these students is something that will be with them for the rest of their lives, and that is opening their world to new horizons. It's really the power of music to bring people together. And I also find that what an amazing thing to do with this situation that we all found ourselves in. You created something so incredible from a place of seeing a need, of all of a sudden maybe having more time and getting involved and just deciding to make a difference. It's so incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Do you have some fun stories from students that you can share with us? I always love to hear those.
Yeah, I would say, Adrian always makes me laugh. Adrian is like this wildly talented and motivated student from Kenya. And when the first time we heard him play, we were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. He was playing Vinyasa Caprice, and we couldn't believe it. We were both like pinching each other underneath the table while we were listening. And he was just flying all around the fingerboard, and we were like, wow. That's I think the most crazy thing is like realizing like all these hidden gems all over the world, like musical hidden gems where like if they had the right training, they could be like far more advanced than even like us who like grew up with all the training. You know, they're so talented. And but he always makes me laugh because every time he logs into Zoom. So I actually found out later this like powerhouse violinist is like 4'11". So he's like this really small guy. And every time he logs onto Zoom, he has, have you ever seen like that famous meme of like the sassy Patrick Star with like the long acrylic nails and lip gloss? Every time he logs onto Zoom, he has this. And he'll like log on to like some really professional situations with us. And there's just like this like really sassy Patrick Star there. And he's just like, he's such a character. And then he logs on and he plays violin. And it's like, you would never know that he was so funny. And yeah.
And he was, he self-taught?
He's
right?
Self-taught, yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's been playing for like 4.5 years, he said. And like the level that he's at is just ridiculous. So I would say my favorite situation is Adrian.
He plays like Paganini Caprices, Mendelssohn Concerto, and he's been invited through Musicians for the World to apply to Boston Conservatory, and we're hoping that he can come to the States. There is some stories like that. There is also this kid, Valentin. He's 10 years old. He's a composer, violinist, and pianist. He plays very well, piano and violin, and he just composed a Christmas carol for a choir and a string orchestra that we recorded recently. And
you can find that on our Instagram and on our YouTube. It's very impressive what he did.
That's amazing. And it's such a great message for all of the listeners to hear, to see how with a computer, you can truly impact someone's life across an ocean, across the world. This is crazy. I'm going to have to Google that meme, of course. And then I'm going to go check your Instagram account to see if I can find some traces of Adrian on this.
Oh, yeah, he's on there.
This is really incredible. Also, you're talking about, these world-class musicians that these students get access to, which they never would without you guys. This is truly incredible.
Yeah, we actually had some... I can think of Andrei Baranov visited us. Some students from Suriname performed for him, from Mexico. We had Alma Dutcher recently visiting us, and we had a whole session with her, and it was just amazing to have her. And yeah, we have had some interest from world-class musicians, for Musicians for the World, and we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I'd say that's like one of my favorite parts, because I actually didn't have access to that till I was in college, and it really, when I started going to master classes at Boston Conservatory, we had something called String Seminar, and they would bring in all these different artists, and I didn't realize till later how much it really impacted my playing. Like, even if I was listening to a cello masterclass or a bass masterclass, just hearing about the musicianship of all these different artists really impacted the way I play, the way I view music even. So it really makes me excited to be able to provide that for these students. Even if they're not playing, I know that they're they're learning from it. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts, and they get super excited. So it's always nice leading up to it.
Kelley, you just mentioned how having access to these musicians impacted your playing. I always feel that when I teach, I learn. How is Musicians for the World impacting, and you as well, Jesus, how is it impacting your playing or your teaching? And you have a great roster of teachers also. Do you see this affecting their own playing and their own artistry?
Definitely. I mean, when you teach, it's like looking yourself at a mirror. You really start like discovering issues in the students playing that you may have, and you solve them through someone else. So I feel like my playing has improved a lot since we started teaching at Musicians for the World. It's hard to say for the other teachers because I'm not constantly listening to them, but I will say that they are really excited, really inspired, and they love having this window to meet the students who are very motivated. I would say that's the most amazing thing, is that you communicate with these students who really, really want to learn and really are like hungry for learning and for getting better at the instrument. Yeah.
And I would also say, in terms of our faculty, that teaching students from different countries, it teaches you a lot about how to be a little bit more sensitive. Especially, I could say that for myself. When we first started this, I was entering it thinking how I've taught my whole life. I started teaching when I was like 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And I was very used to teaching in a certain way. And then I started approaching these students in a similar way. And it wasn't working. And I started realizing that sometimes when they're not practicing, it's not because they're off doing something else. It's because, sometimes they don't have internet and they're reading off a little phone, or sometimes electricity, sometimes no electricity. A lot of the times in Haiti, the power, once the sun sets, there's no light for a lot of our students. And then I remember like the one time that changed my outlook on teaching was when a particular group of students wasn't like sending me anything. And I was like, what's going on, you guys? I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. And I got a video from a student, and she was hooked up to an IV. And she said, Miss Kelley, I'm so sorry. I am really sick. I didn't have enough food this week. And I was like, oh my gosh. And this changed, like, I became a much more sensitive and understanding teacher. Like in that moment, I realized that, there's much bigger things besides practicing, where like my whole life I was taught practicing is it, and that definitely changed the way I teach. And I like to think all this experience has changed my playing because, just getting more experience with the world, it of course changes the way we play. And yeah, I think overall it's made me more sensitive. It's made me more understanding. And I do think that is reflecting in my playing as well.
That's so powerful. I'm getting the chills as you're talking. And it's as you're expanding their horizons, they're expanding yours as well.
Oh, yeah. I feel like sometimes they expand ours even more than we expand theirs.
One other question I have is, how can people learn from your experience? The pandemic hit, performances were canceled. A lot of us found ourselves, without the ability to teach in person, with all of this time. And you decided to go forward and create this amazing organizations. How can someone today, anyone listening, who has maybe a vision of creating something similar or figuring out a way to have some sort of impact on their community, what do you recommend they do? Where can they get started?
Well, I think that if we waited until we knew how to make everything work to get started, we will never have started anything.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to throw yourself out there and figure things out in the way.
Yeah.
That's how it happened to us. I mean, we are performers. Like any student at the conservatory, we didn't have training on non-profits, on in all the information that you need to know, and we started learning as we went.
I guess I would say, just as a piece of advice on that note, when you are in college or in any sort of situation where you're surrounded by musicians, be friendly and make connections, because we have been relying on other people. Like, they know what we don't know, we know what they don't know, and it's like, it's just an exchange of ideas plus Google. But but getting information from everywhere is really important. So you have to be super friendly as a musician so that you have those connections when you need them. Because really, especially in a situation like this, you just kind of have no choice but to dive in and not know things. And it really requires a lot of getting information from places you never really thought you would. So keep all of your options open.
That's so important to hear. And this applies to everything. I think that so often we hesitate to start or do something because we don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And my coach always says, you'll only know how once you've done it. Exactly. So just open Google and ask a question. And yes, ask your friends, whichever endeavor you're going after. It's so important to hear what you just shared with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
How about a round of rapid fire question before I let you go?
Sure.
What doubts or resistance have you had to face on this journey?
I would say doubts is just the most difficult thing is when you are trying to do something and it seems like you're not getting response from the general community. So that's been like my biggest struggle is like when you're in a nonprofit, you always are messaging people. It feels like you're like harassing people all day, basically. So I would say like that's been my biggest struggle in this whole process is like just continuing to reach out to people, finding new people to reach out to, just kind of like keeping all my options open. But also, in that you're a human being and you kind of feels bad to get ignored sometimes. So I would say that's like my biggest thing is finding frustration in some of that. But, with the mission we have, we just keep pushing forward. And exactly. I would say that's my biggest struggle in all of this.
It's like any other, it's like taking auditions. There is going to be more
lots of denial.
Doors closing to you than opening. That could be discouraging, but not really.
Right. And we feel like if there's doubt or if there are obstacles, we're doing it wrong, when actually, if those things are present, it's usually because you're doing it right, you're moving forward.
Yeah, and you just got to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. What skills do you think young musicians studying today should acquire in addition to learning to play their instruments?
I think young musicians, we have to have a more rounded education where we learn how to do other things other than becoming a soloist.
Well-rounded.
Yeah, exactly. Like personal relations, how to a little bit of technology, organization, and anything like that. Yeah. We should all know a little bit of that. Yeah.
Do you want to chip in, Kelley?
Sure. I would say something that I was lucky enough to learn when I was young because my mentor, I studied ballet when I was younger. And my mentor was a very famous ballerina with New York City Ballet. And he always taught me not just to study music or just to study ballet, but to be a well-rounded artist where you're looking into all the different arts, like going to the opera, orchestras, ballet, even, painting, sculptures, all of that, just to really be a well-rounded artist, not just, a violinist, like not to just call yourself a violinist, but an artist.
I love that. You've already shared some, but do you have some anecdotes with your participants at Musicians for the World that are particularly, sweet, or some memories that you'll cherish forever?
Yes, my last birthday a year ago, Kelley produced a video for me where I had students from all over the world like sending messages, and that was one of the most touching moments for me.
And Angelo called from
Yeah,
Haiti.
and then I got a call from students in Haiti, and all of them were together singing "Happy Birthday" to me, and
Wow.
that was just like something very special.
Mm.
I would say for me, we sent a bass to Kenya. I had a young girl contact me saying her dream is to play the bass. And it turned out that we were the last people she was messaging. And after that, she decided, this is my last shot. I'm going to give up after this. And I was really touched by what she said to me. And I wound up talking to Jesus, and then we talked to everyone in the nonprofit. And we wound up actually getting a bass to her. And she told us that we've changed her life. And she was having just so many life issues she opened up to me about. And I was just really happy that we were able to, add some light to all of that. And we have a video of that on YouTube too, if anyone wants to see, of her speaking, her receiving the bass.
Wow.
And you'll see when she gets the bass, it's just like, she looks so happy. It's really, I'd say that was the most impactful moment for me.
Amazing. I know that's going to make me cry. This really shows the power of music as, is unifier a word in English? I don't even know.
Yes,
Yeah.
unifier,
It's a
yeah,
unifier.
of course.
You talked about empowerment earlier, but you are really bringing people from all over the world together in such a powerful way.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's the goal.
That's the goal. I mean, I think it's nice because we have like all these classes where every time we have a masterclass series and the guest artist is ending the class, we have everyone turn on their videos and show themselves, and we have students from all over the world, and I think that's very touching for the guest that we have, and yeah, music is something that unlike like politics, philosophy, or anything else that goes on in daily life, music is something that unites us.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
The next question, I'm curious, do you personally have a favorite tool in the practice room? But I'm also curious to know if there are some tools that you see particularly effective with your students. As you shared with us, some of them are facing some challenges and obstacles. So let me know, please, a tool that is your own favorite in the practice room, but also tools that you see particularly efficient with your students.
I'd say my favorite tool in the practice room are drone tones. I know they're boring and annoying if you're not the one listening, but they just work so well for me when I'm playing my scales or anything with intonation. And then teaching with the students, a lot of them, they don't have access to like the Korg metronome or anything like that. So we always have to find ways to improvise. So we make sure they tune their violins really well. And then I have them play with like an open string, tuning to themselves versus, having that drone tone. Yeah. What about you?
The wall. I like putting my violin on the wall and the scroll of my violin and rebalance my playing. And that's something that, everyone has a wall. So that's more accessible. Yeah.
Yeah. Across the board. Across the board. How about a favorite book that you would recommend to the listeners?
I really love the Inner Game of Music.
That's what I was going to say.
And I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's about finding that part of yourself that is away from anything to do with being a square. It was inspired on a book for tennis by Barry Green. He's a bass professor, I believe, at maybe Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. He's a bass player, and it's an amazing book. Yes, I would recommend it to anyone.
If you haven't yet, you could listen to his conversation with me here on the podcast. It's episode 50.
Wow.
Wow, really?
That's awesome. I can squeeze in here that the inner game of tennis is really great, but I also highly recommend the inner game of golf, which I find even more accessible. And probably because the author, Tim Galloway, is a golf amateur as opposed to being a tennis expert. So his way of approaching the inner game of golf is, I find, really great. Some awesome insight in there. Thanks so much for sharing and giving me the opportunity to mention Barry's conversation. How about you, Kelley?
I was going to say the same thing.
Yes,
I mean, in general, I always like reading, not books that particularly, pertain to music, but just like any sort of book that helps you be a better you. There are a couple that have curses in the titles, like how to like on-F yourself, like those kind of books. Those actually helped me with music, reading those, because with music, we're taught to, be like super, super perfect, perfectionist. Everything has to be a certain way. And anytime I read like any of those self-help books, it's always telling you like, let go a little bit, relax, breathe. So those books actually wound up helping me more as a musician than, music books. I found that those were more helpful.
It's such a great reminder. Thanks for this. Is there a piece of advice that you'd like to pass on to the listeners?
Yes. I think that many times we start music because for a reason, everyone has a different reason or a different story. And then along the way, we forget about it.
Yes.
And I think that we should constantly be reminding ourselves why we are doing what we are doing. And even in the hardest moments, like never forget of why we are doing this.
Amazing. Thanks for this, Jesus.
I would say for me, the best piece of advice is remember to look up and look around you. A lot of the times when we're working towards something, we kind of get tunnel vision, and we forget about not just like our immediate surroundings, but like the whole world around us. And, there's a whole lot going on outside of ourselves. And when we look up and we look around and we realize everything going on, it can be difficult, but it also gives us the opportunity to expand ourselves as people, as artists. And it also gives us the opportunity to see what's going on and, somehow use our artistry to help. Because I will say, doing all of this, we've been so busy, I've practiced less, but I've somehow become a better artist. So sometimes it's really helpful just to expand yourself and really welcome the rest of the world in instead of just, being in a practice room.
Those are so great. And I love how they kind of work together, yin and yang, how Jesus, yours encourages us to look inward and going back to the source, and yours, Kelley, encourages us to, open our eyes and look around and be influenced by the outside world without feeling limited or oppressed by what we're seeing. This is great. Finally, how about a quick actionable tip that the listeners could implement today in their musical lives?
I would say kind of what we've been saying all along is to remember why we do what we do. It's really easy to, kind of, like I said, get tunnel vision and get sucked into all of it. But just remembering, we do this because we love it, and find things that remind us of that, because it's not always easy to just remind ourselves, like, okay, remember you love this.
Right.
But to find things and, actively participate in things that keep us in love with what we do. Because otherwise music can get kind of discouraging, or, it's like we're looking at ourselves constantly, and that's not easy to do. So just finding ways to remind yourself, like activities that you could do to remind yourself that you're doing what you love.
And we can always find evidence of what we're looking for. So if we look for this, we will find it.
Yeah, and making a point of doing it.
Yeah, this is great.
I think if you are having a hard time getting yourself to practice, just open your instrument and put it somewhere, but open. There is a big difference between making yourself practice when your instrument is closed than when your instrument is out there.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. Gretchen Rubin says, make it easy to do right and hard to go wrong. So if the case is open, then it's one fewer obstacle.
Exactly. You're not practicing yet. It's there, but once it's there, it's easier to grab it.
Jesus and Kelley, where can people find you? How can we contribute or help and follow you? Where's all this information? Where can we find you?
So we have our website, like you mentioned earlier, musiciansfortheworld.org. We also are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I think you started a TikTok.
Yes,
right?
but that's not working very well.
But we're on most social media platforms, except for Twitter. And through our website, we have a contact button, and it will actually lead you directly to my email. So if you want to reach out, you can find us through the website, the contact button. And then as well, on every page of our website at the very bottom, we always have a donation button if you're feeling like you would like to donate to our cause.
And there is so many ways to get involved. Of course, we are always, donations are great. It helps us keep our program running. But if you are out there and you are a worldwide artist, someone from New York, Berlin Philharmonic, Chicago Symphony, you want to do a masterclass, we'll be very happy to organize that for you. And anyone who wants to inspire other students, we have different ways of making that happen. Or if anyone who is not a musician but have other skills that can help us, any projects, any advice, we are any way you want to be involved, we'll be happy to.
Yeah, and we're constantly expanding our advisory board. There's no limit to how many people we have right now. So anyone who wants to just get involved, even if you're a lawyer or something like that, it's always helpful. Just anyone who could help with this. We're very open to that. And again, the contact button is on our website, so you can reach out at any time.
Musicians for the World is online. Are there any opportunities coming up for you guys to get together in person with some of the participants?
Yes, of course. I can't imagine never seeing these students live, And we are planning an international festival in Peru in August 2022, where a lot of the teachers that have been working with us, they actually go to Peru and work with the different programs. And not only that, but also, besides working with the programs, perform in their community. We're talking about vulnerable communities. Usually when musicians from, the US, from Europe go to Peru, they play in the fancy places. But this time is different. And of course, all this if COVID allows. And if this ends up working out, we want to try to visit every country that we have a presence in the future.
Fantastic. I'm going to have all of these links in the show notes. Jesus and Kelley, your work is incredible. Thank you so much for sitting with me today. What you do is so inspiring, and your vision and your mission are so important. And the impact that you're having throughout the world is just fantastic. So I'm so happy to have discovered you and your work and your organization. I wish you all the best luck and just so much growth. I hope that it continues to expand and reach more and more young musicians throughout the world. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Renee. This is really great. We're so glad to be here.
Thank you for coming us and for your interest on us and Musicians for the World.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jesus Sáenz and Kelley McGarry from Musicians for the World. They're a great example of the kind of impact you can have by taking action, by following your vision and your inspiration, doing research, reaching out, and going forward one small step at a time. They also show that you don't have to wait. You can get started today with something small, where you are and with what you have, and see where that takes you. If this episode resonated with you, share with everyone you think might benefit from Jesus and Kelley's insight and knowledge, and catch the next episode for a deep dive in their actionable tip. You can find all the information related to this episode in the show notes by visiting mindoverfinger.com. And while there, explore all the resources I share with you about efficient practice, performance preparation, and mindful music making, and find information on how you can work with me. That's it for today. Again, thank you, and à bientôt!